Hello everyone and welcome back to Navis Nobilite. Today we are going to finish up the Craftworld Eldar fleet and go over their fleet list and specific rules. Now, most of the rules that are focused around the Craftworld Eldar happen to be identical to the Corsair Eldar, so this video is only going to go over those rules that are unique to the Craftworld Eldar. So, we're going to begin with the special rules. Any Eldar fleet containing any Craftworld Eldar has an attack or initiative rating of 3. A Eldar Corsair fleet containing no Craftworld Eldar has an attack rating of 4. Effectively, the pirates are better at space battles than the Craftworld Eldar. Now, Craftworld and Corsair vessels. Outright alliance between fleets acting on the will of a Craftworld Seers and the more volatile, self-serving Eldar Corsairs is relatively rare, but certainly not unknown. It does, however, usually only occur when a knowledgeable leader of great influence is present, able to both satisfy the careful measured desires of the Seers, yet at the same time prove his might to the more aggressive pirates. Such leaders, like the legendary Uriel, who we'll get to later, are rare, but fleets they command are invariably powerful. Ordinarily, Craftworld Eldar fleets cannot use the reserve rules to pick ships from a Corsair fleet, nor vice versa. To use a mixed Craftworld and Corsair fleet, you must first choose one particular Eldar fleet list, Craftworld or Corsair. In place of that fleet's normal field commander option, you must then choose an Eldar hero. The presence of an Eldar hero then entitles your fleet to take ships from the other Eldar list as such, i.e. reserve Corsair ships if your fleet is a Craftworld, reserve Craftworld Eldar ships if you are Corsairs, which basically means taking a Void Stalker is not going to be an option because, simply put, the Craftworld Eldar do not have any battleships for you to buy up to get a reserve battleship. So, that is the first thing. They don't mix very well unless you take an Eldar hero. The next important piece of rules, let me get all the way down here, is Aspect Warrior hosts. Unlike Eldar pirates who rely on some self-serving rogues who crew their ships to conduct raids and boarding actions, Eldar Craftworld vessels are able to go to war carrying hosts of Aspect Warriors. Ultimately, what this means is that when you board somebody, you gain a +2 to your dice roll, and a hit and run attack from the ship gets a +1, effectively giving you Space Marine rules. So it's always important that if you're going to take an Aspect Warrior host, really try to make sure that you take a Vampire Raider upgrade to the carrier, if it is a carrier as well, to really capitalize the most on this upgrade. So, the next important difference is the presence of ghost ships. This is a huge block of stuff that ultimately doesn't really go talk about rules, and I really want to talk about the rules far more. Now, what happens if you take a ghost ship? First things first, any vessel in a Yandin fleet may be converted to a ghost ship. Ghost ship use the following rules. 1. Leadership is exactly the same. Special orders. Ghost ships are able to go on special orders and use rerolls in the same manner as other vessels. However, there is a danger because they tend to look into the warp and not into the real. So if you bomb your command check for a special order, it not only fails to go on the order, but it can do nothing that round. So if you have a ghost ship, hope you have a really good leadership on it. Otherwise, you run the risk of turning a expensive vessel into a paperweight. You may not make any further command checks for other ghost ships during the same turn. However, you may use special orders on other crewed vessels. So in effect, your ghost ships and your normal ships function as two separate fleets in the end. If you bomb your leadership on a ghost ship, no other ghost ship can go on a special order, but your crewed vessels can. Okay? Until, of course, you fail a command check with one of them as well. So that is a handy advantage if you are afraid of having a command chain breakdown. Starting with your ghost ships is a really good way to do that. Now, some of the more important things you must understand. They have deathless, which means you are only crit on a hit of a 6, not a 4, 5, or 6, as normal. So that is the big benefit of ghost ships right there. They are not fragile. and your ghost ships already have armor 5, they are not likely to fall apart the moment the enemy, gives them a dirty look. Now, some of the other negatives of the ship. They are uncrewed. You cannot have aspect warrior fighting crews, you cannot have launch bays, you cannot initiate boarding, and you have the enemy has a +1 modifier if they are boarded, and a +1 hit and run modifier if they are hit and run attacked. So do not get anywhere close to the enemy with these ships. They're useful for gunboats and torpedo boats, and that's about it. Most people do not take ghost ships simply because the negatives tend to outweigh the positives. You have good leadership for being an Eldar. You really don't need the insurance that often of a failed command chain breakdown. So that's something to ultimately consider. It's very fluffy if you're using Eandin, but I personally never use ghost ships. It may be a thing for you if you want like playing fluffy based fleets where everything is a ghost ship. By all means, have fun if you want to do that. Now, moving on to the actual fleet list for the Eandin slash Craftworld Eldar. Now, they have a very different setup in regards to leadership to the Corsair Eldar, and they have access to very different ships. Now, remember, you cannot use Corsair ships as reserves unless you take an Eldar hero. So, starting with the Eandin Craftworld fleet, your fleet commander is a 0-1 Autarch. You may include one Eldar Autarch in your fleet who replaces the ship's leadership with his own. He gets LD9. If a fleet is worth over 750 points, you must have an Autarch. You also can take an Eandin Bearer of the Flame for leadership 10 at 100 points as opposed to 75. He has no rerolls. You must purchase a reroll for 25 points. I'll be honest with you, it's better to take the Autarch and a reroll than a Bearer of the Flame and no reroll. So that's just my opinion. If you have extra points, by all means, but it's just usually cheaper to grab the Autarch instead of the Bearer of the Flame. Now, the other command option you have is Prince Uriel himself for 150 points. Now, what do you get for Prince Uriel? One, he counts as an Eldar hero. So that right there gives you a added benefit. Next, he always has aspect warrior hosts, and his ship is always equipped with vampire raiders. So right there, we have a certain number of points that have already been allocated to the 150 point marker. You're getting what you pay for is basically what I'm trying to say. The next benefit is that he has one reroll of his own. So right there, we're getting more and more benefits to Prince Uriel, and you can purchase a second or third reroll for 25 points each. Now, how do you use Uriel? He must be embarked on a dragon ship. Now, here's the best part, though. He's always on a dragon ship, even if he's leading a Corsair fleet. But if you take the Flame of Ashurian, his point cost reduces by 25 points. So if you're going to take Prince Uriel, take the Flame of Ashurian. It's worth it. It's a great ship. Go and watch my video on the Flame of Ashurian and dragon ships, and you'll understand why. There is absolutely no reason not to. Now, other Eldar hero options. There's the Eldar hero at 100 points. You may purchase Fleet Commander rerolls for your Eldar hero, 1, 2, or 3. They are expensive, significantly more expensive than your other options for leadership, but he'll let you take reserves from the Corsair list. Oh, another critical thing about Prince Uriel, he can lead a Corsair list, so bear that in mind. Now, another fun advantage of the Craftworld list, you can take 0 to 3 Farseers for 30 points. So what do they give you? It gives the vessel which they are on, or another capital ship in the same squadron, or an escort squadron within 15 centimeters, a single reroll. So it's basically a great AoE reroll. It's very useful if you have the extra points. They're pretty expensive as for an upgrade, though. Now let's look at their actual ships, their actual capital ships. Dragon ships. Your fleet may include up to 1 dragon ship for every 2 wraith ships included in your fleet. If your fleet is led by an Autarch, you may include a single dragon ship as his flagship, which does not count against this limitation. In order to take the Flame of Ashurian, an Eldar hero must lead the fleet and be embarked aboard it. Now, The options, of course, are Dragon Ship for 260 and your Flame of Assyrian for 320. You want to be able to cram as many Dragon Ships into this fleet as you possibly can, because the Dragon Ships are where your good launch capacity comes from and where your good firepower comes from. So take advantage of these rules. The Flame of Assyrian is basically a gigantic souped up dragon ship with better hits and better firepower. So again, even if it's 0-1, I would take it. I would just take it. There's absolutely no reason not to. Wraith ships. Your fleet may include any number of Wraith ships. These are your bread and butter ships. They're very good at what they do. They're great to mount pulsar lances on and torpedoes. And you can take a decent number of them because they're reasonably priced at 160 points. Comparing these to the Corsair Eldar ships, namely the Shadow and the not the Shadow and the Eclipse, they're pretty undergunned. However, they're cheaper and you have a great deal more flexibility in what they can take. Now, they are equipped basically like a light cruiser plus. Their weapons batteries are equivalent to a Solaris, and their lance bays are equivalent to an Aurora, but they have torpedo or launch capacity options. So they're somewhere in between light cruiser and standard cruiser in power. They're just great overall ships. You can make any capital ship in your fleet a ghost ship, and you, of course, cannot take a Farseer or Aspect Warrior crew. It is a free upgrade. You may put any capital ship in the fleet Aspect Warrior hosts. Now, if you have a carrier, take Aspect Warrior hosts and take Vampire Raiders. Vampire Raiders are I think a 10-point upgrade. I may be wrong about that. Double check with your in the actual stat line for it. But if you have a carrier, you should have Vampire Raiders. They require a 6 to shoot down from enemy turrets. They are among the best assault boats in game. They're not resilient, but they don't need to be. So, and you definitely want that +1 to hit and run, so take Aspect Warrior hosts. Absolutely. Your escorts, you are limited to only the Shadow Hunter. Now, this is not necessarily a bad thing. The Shadow Hunter is a cheap little Eldar escort. They have good weapons options, even if their lances, the Shadow lances, are only normal lances. So bear that in mind. You're not getting pulsar lances out of these bad boys, but they're only 40 points, so that's why. They also have unique benefits against ordnance. They're basically just astounding at chewing up ordnance. You throw them through an enemy ordnance wave, and they can re-roll their holofield saves, which means they're effectively immune to them. And because they have a 4-up armor, they're going to soak up torpedo salvos like crazy. So the Shadow Hunters are basically a great utility weapon against ordnance, and, they do have Eldar weapons batteries, so they're always counted as closing. They'll do some damage. Just don't expect all of the damage to come from them like you would in a Corsair Eldar list. You must have capital ships. Now, ordnance. Any ship with launch bays may choose to have them launch a mix of Nightwing fighters and Phoenix bombers. No surprises there. Ships with torpedo tubes are armed with Eldar torpedoes. No surprise there. Attack craft carriers may also be equipped with torpedo bombers for 15 points per launch bay. This is filthy, and if you do it, you're a bad person. But it also is really entertaining to be able to dump up to a strength 8 torpedo strike into the side of an enemy cruiser when they are expecting normal bombers. We already went over specifically the reserves and allies. Oh, here we go. Up to 1 Voidstalker may be taken in a fleet as long as the fleet is 1,000 points and has at least 3 Corsair Eldar cruisers. So what I said before was incorrect. You can take a Voidstalker. You just need to put a metric ton of points into taking Eldar cruisers, and it has to be above 1,000 points. That's not going to be hard. Now, you can try to pad it up with things like Solaris or Auroras to force it in there, but it is going to be expensive. It had better be a big fleet. So, as you can see, the Craftworld Eldar list is all about its cruisers. It is about building up a tougher, stronger, more reliable Eldar cruiser at the cost of your escort flexibility. So if you like bigger ships that look like fish, as opposed to smaller ships that look like fish, the Craftworld are there for you. Now, they're a little bit slower, but that's okay. You don't necessarily need the speed because you still get your second move. So that is the Craftworld Eldar. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I'll talk to you all again soon.